Now, up to now, we have seen three different ways to pass arguments. You can pass an argument by value, as a reference, and as a constant reference. So you might be asking yourself, well, okay, how do I decide which way to go? Here's some general guidelines that you can follow. If your argument variable is one of the fundamental built-in types, bool, int, float, objects of these types are so small that passing by reference usually doesn't give you any boost in performance. It doesn't really do anything for the efficiency of the program. So you're better off just passing by value. You should also pass by value if you want the computer to make a copy of that variable. Maybe you want to use a copy. You plan to alter the parameter in your function, but you don't want the original argument variable to be changed. That's a good reason to pass by value, not using a reference. If you want to make an efficient way to pass a value, say you have a large object, a large string vector, a large class object that you have created, and you want to be able to just pass a reference to it rather than making a copy of that variable. But you don't need or you don't want to change it. That is a good call for a constant reference, because a constant reference doesn't copy the original object. It just sends a reference to it. But because it's a constant, it cannot be changed. Now, if you want to alter the argument variable, you have an object, a vector of strings, and you want your function to be able to change that vector. In that case, you need to use a reference. That will allow you to alter the value of that argument variable. Now, one thing to bear in mind is that in general, you should avoid changing the argument variable. It's bad programming practice. It's better to write a function that sends the new information back to the calling code through a return value, and then the function that actually owns that variable or that vector or that object, that function makes the changes, not the function that you called. In other words, in our inventory displayer, if we also wanted to modify the inventory, we could do that by passing a reference to the vector instead of a constant reference. But it's bad programming practice. The main function owns our inventory vector. So it's better for the inventory vector to make any changes, or it's better for the main function to make any changes to that inventory vector, rather than, say, having the function change it by way of the reference. You can do it. Make no mistake, it is perfectly valid to send a reference to that vector and then alter the vector in the function that you have sent the reference to. It's just better not to do that. There's obviously times when you have to, and that's okay, but just bear in mind that it's a better practice, if at all possible, to just send a return value back to the main function and then use that return value to modify your vector. So that is just a brief overview of how you can decide how to pass an argument, if you should pass it by value, constant reference, or reference. So hopefully that helps you in your decision making later on down the road. And the next video you'll see will talk about returning references from your functions, and then we'll get into creating a larger program using references. So stay tuned and have a great day.